Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media, your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be with you this Thursday night. It's 7 minutes past the top of the hour, and man, there's a bunch of things I want to get into. Of course, the judges have gone rogue again. Now they're saying, no, we're putting that on pause yet again. They're holding up I guess it's a pause that they have, right? They're extending a pause that they have on the current ban, if you will, on exporting, expelling, deporting any illegal aliens under the Alien Enemies Act. So despite the Supreme Court weighing in on that, saying that that was okay, you've got judges that just do anything they can to slow things down. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit with a senior advisor to United States immigration. But before we get into that, I want to talk about a little tariff action here because tariffs seem to be working well, right? They seem to be working well. You've got some investment that in the United States that seems to be paying off, right? People said, no, it couldn't be done. Again, it's not completely done, right? Because I think that's the pushback that you get when you tell somebody, well, I think we could try to get manufacturing back in the United States. Oh, that's going to take forever. Oh, that's going to take years. Yes, everything takes years. I don't understand. It's like saying, I'm not going to eat. I might have to poop. So, poop, shower. That's how life works, right? There's certain things we have to do in order to live. And the idea that it's going to take years or it's going to take what it takes. And the longer you take to get going is the longer it's going to take to ever happen. I don't ever understand that argument. I really don't. It's kind of like saying you want to go on a diet or change your diet, better said, and because you want to be, fit, healthy, trim, whatever, by a certain date, and then go, oh, yeah, I didn't start in time, so I'm just going to not diet at all. I'm just going to eat myself into oblivion. I mean, I think that's kind of crazy, right? I think it's kind of crazy. But some people seem to make sense of that stuff. So anyway, that's the story there with the tariffs. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about with respect to tariffs was how the Democrats are just they're everywhere, right? They're everywhere. They want to beat up President Trump on tariffs. They want to beat him up on this Garcia. Now, the Garcia part I don't understand. The tariffs I do understand because that is a long game, right? And that may cost people in this country more money in the short term. And I could see how that could threaten people. I remember the first Trump era, Trump 1.0, when, in talk radio land, people were calling in and they were saying stuff like, look, I import washers and dryers. That's what I do. I'm a distributor. I import them, and then I sell them to retailers here in the U.S. A lot of these things are made overseas. And guess what? With aluminum and steel tariffs, these things are going through the roof, and it's really impacting my business. I remember I had one guy on the phone telling me he's been doing this 30 years, and that he's actually looking at folding up a business that his dad had given to him. And it was heartbreaking to hear that. Thankfully, he didn't have to fold because it was temporary, the belt tightening, if you will, right? Those things eventually worked their way out. And that's always what I'm talking about, right? The Trump strategy for tariffs makes all the sense in the world if you look at it from his perspective. And while he may not say it, I think you've got to really just look at the moves he makes. President Trump is clearly trying to make things more equitable for the taxpayer. Now, I could hear the left already. Yeah, the taxpayers, like the ones that don't pay anything, the billionaires, right, as Bernie would say. But no, I mean, the American people in general, making things better for them, for the people that would like to live a certain way and only aspire to do that because they can't, because they're caught under, right? I count myself among those people. Too many expenses, too many things going on for you to really get to that level that you want to be at, you know, whatever it is, 2, 3 homes, this many liquid assets, blah, 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 etc. So I say that to say it's very important that Trump fix the problems that we have. One of the problems we have is the deep state, right? You've got deep staters all over the place. So today, Pete Hegseth said goodbye to another person at the Pentagon. He's not playing any games. Friend, foe, anywhere in between. If you're not the right fit, if you're not the right person, if you're not doing the right thing, you're going to go. If your time is up, you're going to go. If you served your purpose at one point, but now they need somebody else, you're going to go. Got it. You have to be able to move that quickly. If you look back at Trump's campaign, that was the only way he won the first time around. He had to go to 2 or 3 campaign managers. Different people with different strengths at different stages of the game. Made sense to me. Not everybody has the same strength. And I love that. It's good when you can work with people that have different strengths in different areas. Sometimes they can pull you out of your comfort zone, introduce you to new concepts. And some of these concepts I think are important, right? So going back to this, he has to root out a lot of the swamp. Now, he's done that by and large very effectively. Look at Marco Rubio, what he's doing at State, at USAID. Outstanding job, making sure he doesn't get tied up in all these international diplomatic trips. He's got special envoys doing negotiations on his behalf, like Steve Witkoff, so that he can be the executive and start trimming, closing certain embassies, closing anything that's duplicitous, regionalizing some of the Department of State efforts. All good news. So you see what DOGE is doing to trim the size of government, but it doesn't just stop there, because while you have to achieve this, $1.5 trillion in savings from spending, you also have to, that's just so that we can get rid of our debt service loan. But we still have problems with our deficit. We still have problems with our spending. And when you look at the grand totality of this, and you look at gold hitting 3,500 and I think closing at 33.53 or something like that. Gold is the hedge against the dollar. As gold goes up, it means the dollar is becoming weaker. And these are fluctuations that happen. Got it. I've listened to President Trump on a number of occasions talk about strengthening the dollar. This is not an easy task when you have the entire BRICS consortium that's out there trying to do it. And in reality, you've got new currencies, like various cryptocurrencies, that compete in that sphere as well. I would say Bitcoin probably leading the pack, head and shoulders above the rest, in maintaining some sort of value. Now, it's okay. I'm 46 years old. So if you're older than me, I don't know, 8 out of 10 times when I meet somebody, they go, I'm old school. Okay, you can be old school. But that won't change the price of Bitcoin. How old you are, how much you own, that's on you. But how much it's worth is dictated by a bunch of different things. So why am I talking about this stuff? Because I believe that fixing our currency problem is part and parcel of the overall overhaul that Trump is bringing to make America great again. And you can see that evidenced by the stuff that we talked about last night with the Office of the Controller of the Currency, saying that they were now going to allow crypto assets to be managed by banks. This was a very big deal, right? This allows things to be traded on a ledger. The best ledger out there that has the most capacity to do this within record time. It's one called XRP from Ripple. And I know I'm in the weeds here. By no means am I any type of expert on this stuff. I read stuff. And this looks like an opportunity, not only for those who like to invest and whatnot, but an opportunity to revamp the system. There's a lot of people speculating that we're going to go into a quantum financial system. And I would argue that that's probably inevitable at some point. But I would say something else that's inevitable is tying the dollar to an asset, whether that asset is a stable coin that is supported by precious metals or rare earth minerals or something else of value that's not the full faith and credit of the United States. I believe that Trump, part of the legacy he wants to leave us is that. Now, next time I talk to him, I'll ask him, is that part of the legacy you want to leave us? But the movement that we see, the deregulation on some things and the regulation of Bitcoin or crypto assets overall, I think indicates to me that they're here to stay and we're going to play ball with that. And it makes all the sense in the world. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about this rogue judge who, in my opinion, is off his rocker, saying that you can't do this and you can't do that when we have people being the Democrats, really, literally doubling down to try and support and help and vindicate illegal aliens with criminal backgrounds. Blows me away. So we're going to get some reaction to that and everything else that's happening on the immigration front straight ahead with Senior Advisor, former Border Chief, Ron Vitiello.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, so before we switch gears to immigration, I want to give you a little clip of what President Trump said earlier today, because the Democrats are trying to paint the big, beautiful bill and all of the Trump-era tax cuts that are set to expire as somehow a tax cut for the billionaires, and how this is detrimental for the rest of us. Listen to this.
Would you support a millionaire tax?
I think it would be very disruptive because a lot of the millionaires would leave the country. You know, in the old days, they left states. They go from one state to the other. Now with transportation so quick and so easy, they leave countries. You'll lose a lot of money if you do that. That would, and other countries that have done it have lost a lot of people. They lose their wealthy people. That would be bad because the wealthy people pay the tax.
President Trump is spot on here. Now, how do we know he's spot on? Well, because just listen to what he's saying. So he's very clearly explaining if you tax the millionaires will leave this country. Now, some idiot out there is listening going, that would be great if we can get rid of the millionaires. But I would ask that idiot who says that, have you ever been given a job by somebody that wasn't rich, or at least richer than you? The answer is no. Obviously, they have enough money to pay you. They're in business. They're making money. These people are part of the economy as well. This is an important thing. Why do people leave their country to begin with, right? Why do people risk life and limb to come to the United States? Very simple. Where they live, economically at least, or in terms of opportunity, usually economic, but sometimes in terms of liberty, it sucks. So they come to the United States. So what would be the easiest way to get people to stay in their country, like Kamala Harris did. Don't come. I don't think that worked. Quite frankly, I think the easiest thing you could do is make sure that their economies flourish. Now, I don't have this magic wand that's going to make Nicaragua, which is in many ways, I believe, on par typically with third world conditions. And I'm just using that as an example, how we're going to make that catch up with New York City. But in reality, if there wasn't a scarcity on dollars, right? Or I should say this better, if there was parity, parity, parity with currencies, and I don't mean conversion of currencies, right? I mean actual parity. So if you got $1 million in the U.S., you got $1 million in Nicaragua. If there were parity in currencies, they'd never come here. Well, how could you do that? Well, I think one way of doing that would be what I was talking about before. If there was a return to the gold standard, that'd be one way. Whether, the conversion was the same or not, the gold is the same, right? So if you say, hey, look, I've got whatever, my dollar is backed by this much gold, and gold is worth this much in weight, blah, blah, blah. But everybody is on the fence with gold, right? You've got people saying, well, I don't know if we can do gold. There's not enough gold out there. Maybe that's true. I'm not saying it is, but maybe it's true. Now, if it is true, then what else is out there that's worth something? What do we keep negotiating for? I don't hear President Trump saying, look, I want to make a deal with you, Volodymyr Zelensky, for your gold, for your oil, for your maritime rights. I don't hear him saying any of that. I do hear him saying, Volodymyr, I want to make a deal with you for your rare earth minerals. So clearly that's what's worth something, right? And this is where chip makers come in, and people want these minerals and different things to do lots of different things, right? From silver to all this other stuff. If that is, in fact, something that's available to people, and people have the ability to, and again, they may not be able to mine these things, right? So they could be like, yeah, we're sitting on it, but we don't have a way to get it, and then to refine it, and then to actually access it. Understood. I'm speaking hypothetically here, utopian, if you will. If you take the most remote third world country, and they have something of value, maybe some don't, but if they did, and they were able to have parity with the dollar, because they have their own stable coin or their own precious metals or their own rare earth minerals, and everybody were playing on the same playing field, then people would likely not leave their country as much, right? That strikes me as something. Now, if you tell me, no, because I live in Iran, and in Iran, I want to not wear a hijab, and I want to be free as a woman. Well, then, yes, welcome to the United States, right? I'm not saying it would end all immigration. I'm saying in large part it would. Now, is this a big goal? Yes, it's a big goal. Is it an impossible one? I don't know that it's impossible. Anyway, more on that and immigration when we return. I got a few more thoughts to unpack there. Keep it locked right here. I'm Rich Valdez.
Glad to be on your show, Rich. It's just an amazing broadcast that I hope the rest of America listens to every day.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Do I deserve the Nobel?
If you mention greatly.
Well, maybe for the Abraham Accords. I don't want to get ahead of myself on this one, but they say for the Abraham Accords. And by the way, speaking of that, we're going to be filling it up. A lot of countries want to come into the Abraham Accords. You know, we have 4. And Biden did nothing on that one, too. It's the same 4. but they're great countries, and they were brave doing it, and it's worked out very well. And we're going to be filling up the Abraham Accords. They're going to be, I think, filling it up very rapidly. Martha,
Mr. President,
could you say something about that?
There's great, enormous opportunity to grow the Abraham Accords, but I would just point to one thing. Of all the leaders in the world today, no leader is working harder to prevent wars or end them than President Trump is right now. That's why we're talking to Iran. That's why we're engaged with Ukraine and Russia. It's the desire to prevent these wars from breaking out and to end the ones that exist already. And again, I just think it's tremendous for our country to be led by a president who desires to bring peace and establish peace and protect peace. So it's hard work.
Hard work indeed. Again, that's President Trump and Secretary Rubio in the Oval Office with the Prime Minister of Norway just earlier today. And something Secretary Rubio said, I think it was striking to me. It makes a lot of sense because, it goes without saying, but he said it's a lot of work. And it is, right? I'm here talking about trying to get parity with currencies across the globe. Ambitious, yes, but possible, I think, yes, as well. But in addition to that, you've got Trump trying to literally forge peace all over the place. Yesterday telling Putin, or earlier this morning, that he's, stop, cut it out, whatever it was he said, chastising, blasting Putin for this most brutal attack, I think, to date. At least it's being reported that way on the Ukrainians. Blasting Zelensky all the time for not being willing to play ball. And again, I'm not in either of their shoes, and I can't imagine anybody wants to play nice with the other guy. And here you have Trump trying to make peace of all this stuff. And today, talking a little bit about his own deadline, right? Saying he doesn't have any allegiance to anybody in this Ukraine-Russia peace deal. And making remarks that I think are good. People need to hear this stuff. As he was meeting with Jonas Gahr Store, the Prime Minister of Norway, Trump said, quote, "I have my own deadline." And he says, we want it to be fast, and the Prime Minister is helping us. So that's pretty cool to know. What is Norway doing to help end this war? Well, I think everybody that's a NATO country is interested in seeing an end to this war. Now, while the White House isn't putting out a ton of information on this stuff, and the president's self-imposed deadline that isn't disclosed, or he just said, I have my own deadline. This is, it's not easy, right? Not easy at all. And perhaps some have underestimated what this would be, right? What it would take. I can tell you, I thought that these two Volodymyrs, right? Vladimir and Volodymyr, I should say, right? Zelensky and Putin. I really thought these two guys were going to come to the table a lot sooner. I definitely misunderstood that. I read that wrong and underestimated it for sure. Clearly, Putin has the capacity to stay at war. He doesn't care. I forget who was on our show that called it the meat grinder and basically said they have enough men to keep going. And if they have to kidnap them off the streets and throw them into the war, they will. So bottom line there is they're still at it. Irrespective of reports that you hear that they're doing this, they're doing that. I don't know what they're doing on both sides of the fence. Everybody's claiming the other guy is kidnapping able-bodied men right off the street in unmarked vans and taking them to go fight. Okay, got it. But ultimately, this is a serious thing. So Trump reiterating today that very displeased with Russia for continuing to strike Kiev, which killed 10 people, injured 90 people, saying, I'm not happy with the Russian strikes on Kiev, not necessary, and very bad timing. Vladimir, stop. 5,000 soldiers a week are dying. Let's get the peace deal done. Let me tell you, I really got to applaud Trump here. And I think he's showing a lot of couth, right? I'm not going to say restraint because, I mean, if you don't show restraint, what's the alternative? War. And I think that's something we don't want, not with a nuclear power, that's for sure. So I think he's being patient, he's being resilient, but I don't envy the president at all. I wouldn't want to be in that situation, not at all. So what happens now, right? I think is part of the question I'm asking you all, the American people, our listeners. What do we do from here? Where do we go from here? What is the United States going to do? I believe that Trump will say something like, look, I'm trying to make peace here, but bottom line is we're getting out of this thing sooner rather than later. We're not going to do it. Maybe he does say that. I think there's a reality of the Budapest Memorandum of Security Assurances that said, hey, give us your nukes, give up your nukes, and we will provide security for you. That is a love note from the United States to Ukraine. So I think we're on the hook for that. But again, presidents in the past, like Obama, thought that being on the hook to provide security assurances for Ukraine meant sending them blankets, whereas Trump sent them lethal aid with Javelin missiles. And Biden comes in and takes everybody to town and says, nah, I'm going to give them the whole house. I'm giving them everything, including my firstborn. Literally sent his son there to sit on some board and make a lot of money, $50,000 a month. So how much is too much? That's definitely too much, right? So I want to know, what do we do? Do we pull out of Ukraine? Do we stay the course? I want to hear from you all, the American people. The phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
A federal judge has temporarily halted her own order requiring the Trump administration to provide updates on efforts to bring Kilmar Abrego Garcia back to the U.S. The Maryland man was mistakenly deported to El Salvador's mega prison last month, you'll remember. And in a heated town hall yesterday in Iowa, some people criticized Senator Chuck Grassley and the Trump administration for how the case is being handled. Listen.
We have a due process, and it was not followed. And the Supreme Court ruled that he needed to come back. Okay. So Trump said, nope, I'm not going to do that. So why do we even have a Supreme Court if they're not going to follow the ruling of the...
All right, so that's a report from CBS News, and I'm not sure that they're capturing the essence of what's going on accurately, but a federal judge in Maryland has now ordered the administration to facilitate the return of a 20-year-old Venezuelan man deported to El Salvador, whose removal violated what they say was a previous court settlement, and that's U.S. District Judge Stephanie Gallagher. So I want to get to the bottom of this because I feel like this is too much going on. You now have two migrants that these courts are trying to bring back to the United States. You've got half a dozen or so Democrat lawmakers that are all over the place visiting from Mahmoud Khalil to Kilmar Abrego Garcia and everybody else. So I want to get the scoop on what's going on from senior advisor to U.S. Customs and Border Protection. He's former chief of the U.S. Border Patrol and former acting director of ICE. Ron Vitiello, welcome back, brother.
Thanks, Rich. Thanks for inviting me.
You bet. So what's going on here with these judges? It seems like their understanding and mine are different on what's happening with the Supreme Court. What can you tell us?
Well, I would say this, I'm not an attorney, so I'm going to interpret this as from the point of view of an operator, somebody that was on the line and understands and sent many people to immigration hearings in the United States. And the process for Abrego Garcia is the process that exists. there's an administrative procedure in which people who are in the country illegally are referred to an immigration hearing, and a judge, who is an administrative law judge, an employee of the Justice Department, hears their case. The government presents their side. The individual gets to present their side, and the judge makes a decision. In 2 cases where Abrego had that opportunity, he was ordered removed by the judge. Subsequent to that, he was given a withhold order. What that means is that he's still deportable, doesn't give him any other status in the United States, but the judge recommended that he's not sent back to El Salvador. Why? Because the rival gang was looking for him, or another gang that existed in El Salvador was threatening him in some way. And so that was what the withhold order was about. Subsequently, he gets removed to El Salvador, but things have changed since the withhold order was issued, right? He's been ordered deported. He was sent to El Salvador. The gang that he was fearful of doesn't exist in El Salvador anymore. And the president named MS-13 a foreign terrorist organization. And so the idea of a withhold order for a terrorist, that doesn't exist either. And so operationally, he's been removed to El Salvador. Both presidents in the Oval Office said they weren't going to return him under that condition. Bukele told the press in front of the president that, hey, he belongs to us. He's a citizen of El Salvador. If the roles were reversed, America wouldn't send one of their native sons back to El Salvador for immigration violations that occurred in El Salvador by an American. So it's crazy that the left is asking for due process, a process that he had multiple times, besides which he's not a great human being, right? He's in MS-13. He's had violence, domestic violence in his background. He appears to be a smuggler of illegal aliens, wasn't prosecuted for any of those things, but there's documented proof that he engaged in such things.
Folks, Ron Vitiello, he's currently the senior advisor to U.S. Customs and Border Protection. He's former U.S. Border Patrol chief, and he was acting director at ICE. Now, Ron Vitiello, in your time, and I know you've been doing this for a while, prior to your role as senior advisor, how long did you serve in federal law enforcement in a border capacity?
So I was a Border Patrol agent for 33 years, and I finished my career the last year as the acting director at ICE. So most of my adult life, I started when I was 22.
So, I mean, I would say you know a lot about this stuff. You've seen a lot of this happen. And during the time that President Obama was there, he tends to hold the colloquial title of the deporter-in-chief. I never seen handfuls of Congresspeople going to foreign countries when he did this, right? Didn't President Obama deport many people by these means and others? I think something about 75% is what I was told of his deportations didn't have this due process that they're fighting for.
More deportations than any other president before him. Because why? Because under the Bush administration, the prior 8 years before Obama was president, the Department of Homeland Security was stood up and created a system by which when someone got arrested in the United States who was born somewhere else, was an alien of some level in the U.S., they got automatically referred to ICE by the jurisdiction in which they were arrested and held. And so those people were turned over directly from the jail system into the immigration system and put on a path for removal. Obama did more than any president before him because of the tools that he inherited as president that were built during the Bush administration. In the second term of Obama, they tore that system apart. They tried to tell the American people that it wasn't necessary. When they tore it apart, many jurisdictions, there had only been 2 sanctuary jurisdictions while he was the president in the second term, Boston and Chicago both opted out, if you will, of the redesigned program, and that started a domino effect and created the sanctuary city status across the United States. Those 2 official cities pulled out of the Secure Communities program, which did more to deport criminal aliens than any program before it or since.
Outstanding. Ron Vitiello, can you stick with us for another couple of minutes so we can wrap up?
Would like to do that, yes.
You bet. All right, amigos, we're coming right back with former border chief and current senior advisor to U.S. Customs and Border Protection, Ron Vitiello. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Mr. Call Screener, who is a budding radio star, by the way. Richie Valdez is terrific.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue our conversation with Chief Ron Vitiello, Senior Advisor at USCBP. And, Chief, I want to ask you, I know in previous conversations we've had, you've indicated how well things are working in Washington with respect to collaboration between Borders Our Home and Director Patel, AG Bondi, and so many others. Shout out to Dan Bongino, who's a part of the team now. And I love that we're firing on all cylinders. Is that still the case? And is the mission moving forward as anticipated?
It is 100%. And the interagency cooperation, as you stated, is unlike anything I've ever seen previously in my government service. Everyone is leaning in to ensure that the president's priorities, what he promised the American public, was going to happen on the border, is in fact happening. A quick example, Border Patrol agents in the field on the front line regularly refer criminal cases to the U.S. Attorney's Office in the district in which they operate. That acceptance rate right now in the United States across the southwest border is 97%. What that means is about 260 people came into the border illegally last night, were apprehended by Border Patrol agents, and most of them, 90+% of them, were referred for criminal prosecution for that illegal act. That's something I've never seen in my 34 years of doing this work. And it isn't just justice; it's also HHS, the Department of State, the Department of Defense. Everybody, like I said, is leaning in to help Kristi Noem and her leadership succeed, as well as pay down the commitments that the president made to the American people.
Really well put. Yeah, and if I'd be remiss if I didn't mention all of those as well. I think it's a real for the first time from what I can see, same thing, a real whole of government approach to making things better. Ron Vitiello, thank you so much for joining us and giving us an update. I'll be a knocking soon to get another one. God bless you, sir.
Oh, thank you so much.
You bet. And let's see. We go to David, Manassas, Virginia, with seconds to go on the clock. Go right ahead, sir.
I was kind of getting to your question that you're asking about, do we stay in with Ukraine or not? And I'll make it really quick. No. The answer is no. We should have never been in it to begin with. I believe it's a big political scam. If you go back to the Obama administration, we never really supported Crimea. Ukraine, in fact, we had to undermine their elections. They took Russia took Crimea then, and Ukraine never did anything to prepare its defense against Russia again. And they sat there and did nothing, and then Russia goes after them again. And what happens? They cry wolf and look to the U.S. to do everything for them. And then we still didn't really support them as much as we should have. If we were going to get rid of that and stop it, way on into what happened with the COVID and the grains and wheat and all that stuff. If it was so detrimental to the United States and world, why didn't we stop it? So the answer is it's just all a political scam and game on us.
Yeah, I think you're right, David. Good point. I don't know that we're able to cut and run at this point. I think we do have some commitment there based on our previous agreements, but it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out. David in Manassas, Virginia, WMAL, thanks for your call. I got callers from Idaho and from, I think, Texas. Don't go anywhere, folks. We're coming right back. Another hour straight ahead. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Thursday night edition of the program. I am thrilled to be here with you. It's a real blessing. Our phone number, if you want to join us, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. I'll be opening up the phone lines very shortly because there's a bunch of people that want to get on. And I want to get into a few things with you guys tonight. Of course, President Trump reiterating the importance of peace in the European region with Ukraine and Russia continuing to go at it. Russia now hitting them. The president blasting Russia, saying, Vladimir, stop, and putting that out on Truth Social, all caps. Seems like he's getting very focused and has indicated that he has his own timeline. So that's part of what's going on there. And President Trump also reminding everybody that the fake news is still the fake news. And while he's very interested in peace, it doesn't mean that the others aren't. Listen to this one, cut number 6.
On Russia, do you still believe that Putin is serious about peace given the events overnight in Ukraine? And if that bombing doesn't end, are you considering new sanctions on Russia?
So we are thinking that very strongly that they both want peace, but they have to get to the table. We're waiting a long time. They have to get them to the table, and I think we're going to get peace. We want to save 5,000 young people. I used to say 2,500. I now say 5,000. We have, Mr. Prime Minister, we have about 5,000 young people a week that are dying in that ridiculous war. And, I started out because I didn't like all the money that we were paying, and then I realized how many people were dying. And that's by far the more important element right now. I'm saying we can save thousands of people. And I don't like that it takes long at all. But I think they both want to make peace. I do believe so. There's a lot of hatred there. There's a lot of very bad blood, a lot of distrust. But I think I hope we're going to get there for the sake of a lot of young people that are dying.
President Trump, very solid on his message. He's remained remarkably consistent that he wants the dying to end. And you gotta respect him for really always sticking with that. There was other comments that President Trump made regarding tariffs and China. We'll get to those in a little bit. I want to get into this because something else that caught my eye was this piece on Red State. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson showing that she's either the dumbest or most evil justice on the Supreme Court, which I thought was pretty funny. And very good piece here by Banshi. It says, when now Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson stated in her confirmation hearing that she couldn't define what a woman was, that probably should have been treated as a bit of a red flag. That would have required the Senate to have any sense of shame, though we all know that that's long been in short supply. Ain't that the truth? And since joining the Supreme Court, Jackson has become perhaps the most reliable left-wing vote on the court. There is no level of partisanship she won't stoop to in order to defend a Democrat point of view. And that was on display again in recent oral arguments surrounding parental rights. The case in question focuses on whether parents have a right to opt their children out of being taught LGBTQ ideology, including transgenderism. While a majority of the court seemed to be leaning toward affirming the obvious right that parents should have, Jackson showed she's either the dumbest or the most evil member of the court. And I think this is interesting because she's one thing about her, right? She's very honest. And what's interesting, I find, is that she's willing to be an activist before a jurist. She doesn't care. She's really there to do the activism, if you will. I think she's a purist in that. She's an activist at heart. Anyway, she wasn't aware, at least pretended she wasn't, that the Montgomery County School District, which is at the center of this argument, requires the books in question to be taught to students. To offer further context, the case surrounds a specific LGBTQ curriculum that was mandated some years prior. The books are not just sitting on the shelves, and even if they were, one would argue that parents have a right to object to their children being exposed to them. This is pretty basic. Schools shouldn't be teaching things like sexuality to children. There's no reason to do it, and it certainly violates the religious rights of parents in the process. But while Justice Jackson often comes across as a vapid and ill-equipped member of the court, the other option, according to the author here, is that she's just evil and that the rest of it is just an act. And there's a bunch of different things of her commentary during these oral arguments, and it's really eye-opening, right? It's eye-opening that she says the parent can choose to put their kid elsewhere. Instead of saying, look, this is a public school, I don't want my kid to learn that, you have to send your kid to public school. And if that is a burden, if it burdens a parent's religious exercise, if the school teaches something that the parent disagrees with, well, you have a choice. You can homeschool them. This was her response. So the good justice, her thought, I have a clip of her. Listen to good old Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson.
This is a preliminary injunction. I appreciate that. When you seek a preliminary injunction, you actually have to have a factual record that is the basis for the court to make a determination in your favor that some conduct that you're complaining about needs to be enjoined. And what's confusing to me and hard, really hard in this situation is that we have a lot of sincerely held beliefs and concerns and children and principles, and I see all of those things, and so really want to be careful about making the pronouncement that relates to this.
I don't know if we want to be careful with making any pronouncements. Look, you might have a sincerely held belief that if your daughter engages in activities of ill repute and you are of a particular faith, that you have the responsibility, according to your faith, to do an honor killing on your daughter. However, my friends, that's not legal, right? It's not just immoral. It's illegal. You can't kill people, right? So my point is, she leads with this premise that this may, ruffle a lot of feathers, and none of that matters. The law is the law, and her job is to interpret this law, and instead she's interpreting one's emotions. It seems like, in particular, her own. This is why we have to do a better job putting people on this court, but there she is. So I'll get into this a little bit more straight ahead. Ultimately, you can't, and I think Justice Kavanaugh made the right assessment here. He said they're not asking you to change what's taught in the classroom. They're only seeking to be able to walk out so children aren't exposed to things that are contrary to what they believe. And that should be a fundamental right. You shouldn't have to leave the school because they're teaching you about something that you don't agree with. And I think I stand by that wholeheartedly. I mean, it's always your right to leave the school, right? That's easy. The part that's hard here is saying, I don't want to go to this class, or I don't want to go to that assembly. Get it? Hopefully she gets it. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. Anyway, I want to continue the discussion on what's going on in schools across the country. Huge win in Texas for school choice. We're going to talk about that straight ahead with Walter Blanks Jr. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
With that, Mr. President, I move to concur with House amendments added to the committee's substitute for Senate Bill 2.
Senator Creighton, thank you again. I passed the first school choice bill in 2013 off this floor. Members, the Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton, Eckhart.
There being 19 ayes and 12 nays, school choice has come to Texas. Thank you, Senator.
That is the big news coming out of Texas. School choice has finally arrived, headed to Governor Abbott's desk for a signature. And this is something that I for years have thought is an excellent idea. It's truly what levels the playing field in the economy of education, whether you're in a bad neighborhood or a good neighborhood. If you get that school choice voucher and you can choose where you want to send your kid, you've got a shot. And this is something I want to get some reaction to because I think it's a great story coming out of Texas. And there's a new report out that talks about this, a new research report. So I want to speak with our guest, Walter Blanks Jr. He's a spokesperson for the American Federation for Children. And he knows a thing or two about school choice. Walter Blanks, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be with you.
You bet. So you heard the news coming out of Texas. School choice is that much closer to being there, headed to Governor Abbott's desk for a signature. What do you think?
It was definitely a long time coming in Texas. And, of course, everything is bigger in Texas. And so once Governor Abbott signs this bill, which we know for a fact he will do, it will be the largest school choice program in the entire country, starting out at $1 billion on day one, which is absolutely incredible. And for all the hard work over the years that has gone into paving the way for this to happen, it's a massive win for the state of Texas and ultimately for families across the entire state.
And when you look at this, personally speaking, I think this is really good for people, in particular the people that otherwise couldn't send their kids to private school, right? I think some of the criticism that they get from others is saying this is just going to make it easier for rich kids to go to private school and they're already in private school. But I feel like the opposite is really true. Kids that may not have had a chance to go to private school otherwise now have a chance. Your thoughts?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the fact of the matter is, if you're wealthy, if you're affluent, if you have the means, you already have school choice. You might not choose a private school, but you may, move into the district where the houses are in the millions. And since we fund our schools through property taxes, right, those schools typically have more resources to do some of those things. And so when we talk about school choice and education freedom as a whole, it's mostly for families who are stuck in a school based off of where they live. That's the only reason they're going to that school is because they live close by. And so we have a very, very archaic way of assigning children to schools, and school choice breaks that up. School choice allows parents to be in the driver's seat of their child's education and put them in a place not just where they thrive academically, but also they're in an environment that aligns with what they believe as a household. And so there's a lot of reasons that families pick schools, and they should be able to have a wide range of options. And I'm super glad to see Texas, along with a few other states just this year alone, have passed universal school choice programs. And so we're continuing to see that momentum carry across the country.
Now, Walter Blanks Jr., I want you to tell us a little bit about this new research report that's come out from the Urban Institute and what it really focuses on and the big takeaways.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up. So the Urban Institute put out a report on some numbers coming out of Ohio, which is actually where I grew up. And this specific report took a sample of dates from 2008 to 2014, and it really studied some of the impacts that students who use the Ed Choice Scholarship Program, how they benefited from it in the long run, which coincidentally, those were the exact years that I actually used the school choice program. And so I like to
as a participant.
Yeah, of course, yeah, and a beneficiary. So I like to think that, some of this data I have had some input on, over the years, which is really cool to see. But really high level stuff. It showed us that students who use the school choice program were 32% more likely to enroll in college than their public school peers. But the things that really got down to it for me, coming from a low income minority community, being Black myself, students from the lowest income families were 175% more likely to graduate if they used the scholarship program. And then Black students who used the program were 138% more likely to graduate compared to their public school peers. So similar to what you said, we hear that this doesn't benefit low-income families, this doesn't benefit minority families, and there is raw data coming out of Ohio, which has one of the oldest school choice programs that says that is simply not the case.
Outstanding. Now, if people want to take a look at this report, where do they find it?
Yeah, so it's all over the American Federations for Children's websites and social media accounts, but you can also just type in Urban Institute School Choice Report, and it comes right up.
Outstanding. Walter Blanks, I want to thank you for being with us. Very, very informational stuff. Very, very big win for you guys. Keep up the good work, and let everybody know how they can follow you and the work that you're working on as well.
Yeah, so my social media accounts are Walt Blanks Jr. I share all of the things that I'm up to. I recently testified before Congress on the impacts that school choice has had on my life. Heavily involved in the state of Tennessee, where they passed the school choice program earlier this year. So follow me on all my socials. I like to keep everyone updated that way.
Outstanding, brother. Keep up the good work. We'll have you back on again soon. Godspeed, sir. All right, Walter Blanks Jr. I think he dropped off there. Anyway, your calls and more are coming up right now, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And like always, I would be remiss if I didn't thank you guys for the 5-star reviews that you give us for the podcast. And, there's 2 separate podcasts that we do. There's This Is America with Rich Valdez, and there's America at Night, all right? And either one, whichever one you listen to, I'm grateful that you're listening to it, and I'm thankful for all of your kind words related to that. And people always ask me, how do we listen to you? How do we listen live? Of course, whether you want to listen live or listen to yesterday's interviews, whatever it was, or last week's interviews, you can always go to the same place, richvaldez.com. richvaldez with an S.com. And you can sign up for the podcast. You can play the episode without ever signing up for the podcast. It's absolutely free. It doesn't cost you a penny. You don't need to give your email or anything like that. So go ahead and check it out when you get a moment. Folks, are coming right back. Your calls and more. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
I think we're doing very well with respect to Iran, and we're having very serious meetings. And there are only 2 options, and the one option is not a good option. It's not a good option at all. And I think we're doing very well on an agreement with Iran, but that one, we're doing a lot of things, I will say, but that one is well on its way. We could have a very, very good decision, and a lot of lives will be saved.
That's, of course, President Trump talking about Iran, in addition to all the conversation we've heard about Ukraine and Russia. And I want to continue. Let us go to the Gilla from Manila, but he's streaming us from Texas today. Gil, normally from the Philippines. Welcome, sir.
Howdy, partner.
Howdy, partner. What's going on?
Well, I'm close to Elon Musk's Tesla factory, close to Austin, Texas. Quite a spectacular place. Really
Nice.
is.
What's on your mind tonight, Gil?
Well, are you still running your contest about Jasmine Crockett?
For you, absolutely. Always looking for a good nickname for Jasmine Crockett. What do you got?
Well, it kind of goes like this. Back in the 50s, it was Davy Crockett, king of the wild frontier. And because of her backing of LGBTQ, it should be Jasmine Crockett, queen of the trans and queer. Okay.
That's pretty clever. Pretty clever. I like that one. If you make a real song out of it, send us a little clip of it. We might play it every now and again when we talk about her. And what do you think about what's going on in the world of geopolitics, being that you're always observing the world from the Pacific Islands?
Well, President Trump meeting with Norway Prime Minister is significant. Norway and Finland are extremely powerful members of NATO, more than most of the others. Finland actually strikes fear into Russia. During the Second World War, they gave Russia a bloody nose when it was the Soviet Union a couple of times. And they're great fighters, and they actually have the most field artillery of any army in NATO. So they strike fear into Mr. Putin. He doesn't want to tangle again with Finland.
So you think it's a strategic move of Trump's to bring the Prime Minister of Norway to the Oval Office to kind of set the stage for this?
Well, yes, I think that this whole thing should have more of a European emphasis than an emphasis from the United States. Sure. The military of the European members of NATO, plus Turkey, which is actually the largest military in NATO, adds up to pretty much what the Russians have. We just have to pool those resources in such a way that we can help Ukraine better defend themselves. The problem is this. Vladimir Putin can't lose face. He's going to have to come out of this with something, or he will feel disgrace. That's just his character. And
yeah, it's a good point, Gil. I know that sometimes these dictator types, that you're right, they need to walk away. They want a pound of flesh. What that looks like, and I would say he's gotten his pound of flesh in that they're losing so many people in this war. He could easily turn around and say, hey, there's this many less Ukrainians today because of the result of our effort. But perhaps that's not enough. Gil in Manila, Godspeed to you, sir. I'm glad that you're here stateside doing what you're doing at the VA, and I'm thrilled that you're able to call in a little more often. Hope to speak with you again really soon. And let me see. I'm going to take a pause right here, and then we'll come back to the rest of your calls. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Ultimately, at some point, we want the people to go out, come back as legal. we're going to send, as you probably know, we're doing a self-deportation. And we're going to make it comfortable for people, and we're going to work with those people to come back into our country legally.
¿Está funcionando la autodeportación?
Well, we're starting it. We haven't started it right now. We're getting the murderers out. We have our total aim on the very bad ones, as you can imagine.
That, of course, President Trump in an interview with Fox Noticias, teasing his upcoming self-deportation program, saying they are going to work with people. You leave and we'll make sure you come back. And I've got another one that I want you to hear from Fox 26 in Houston, where Jonathan Mejia, the reporter there, spoke with an immigration attorney. Listen to this.
Sent out a blast email, and they sent it out to like 936,000 people. But there's only record that only like 900,000 people have entered. So obviously there were some unintended recipients.
The email Raed Gonzalez is referencing, dated April 11th, from the Department of Homeland Security. It says, "It is time for you to leave the United States." It explains how the department encourages to self-deport through the CBP Home app and ends with, "Do not attempt to remain in the United States. The federal government will find you."
I am not sure if this is part of a campaign of trying to intimidate or scare individuals into leaving the country on their own, or this was really a mishap that nobody noticed.
Fox 26 reached out to U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and they admitted to sending the email for individuals who do not have lawful status to remain in the country, but also to non-personal emails such as an American citizen contact that was provided by the immigrant, saying in part quotes, "Notices may have been sent to unintended recipients. CBP is monitoring communications and will address any issues on a case-by-case basis."
So I'm very interested in getting your thoughts on this, because I've said for a long time it would be very difficult to actually get all these people out of the country. It seems like a more targeted operation to get some of the bad guys out. What will the incentive be? And I'm pretty sure there's going to be a really good incentive with Trump saying, "And we're going to work with them." I'm pretty sure they are going to work with them. So I'm very curious to know your thoughts on this. Of course, our phone number, 833-4825-337-833-4-VALDEZ. And I'm going to get to some of your calls right now. Let's go over here to the phones. We go. Let us go to Nance. Nance is in Chicago on WLS. Go right ahead.
Can you hear me?
Everyone hears you.
Excellent. You began the show talking about or alluding to some successful tariffs that we have already seen the benefit of, yet you did not mention them. I would like to know.
Sure, I'll give you about 70 of them. There are 70 nations that were not playing ball, that were engaged in imbalanced tariff situations with the United States, and at the threat of reciprocal tariffs, changed their tune and said, "You know what, we're going to change that." And you had the European Union, van der Leyen is her name, Ursula van der Leyen. Cue that up just so that she can hear it. Maybe she missed it. Ursula van der Leyen, the president of the European Union, saying, "We are willing to work with you in a 0-for-0 tariff situation." And now we have 70 nations that are willing to do exactly that. This is a huge success. Nance.
And didn't that success only come after Trump was hit by 145? There were a number of countries who equaled or exceeded the tariffs that he laid on them. And didn't that actually happen after Trump had levied those incredibly ridiculous tariffs?
I don't know what you're talking about. Rephrase your question. Help me understand.
Okay, maybe I misunderstood. Actually, we can move to another topic if you don't mind.
Well, no, I just didn't understand your question. You're about 145. What are you talking about?
Well, you're saying that roughly 100 countries have
70
countries have come to Trump on bended knee trying to renegotiate these tariffs. Is that what you said? Did I hear you correctly?
They didn't say they wanted to renegotiate. They said they will play ball.
They said they would play ball. And did they say they would play ball before or after Trump levied these obscenely large tariffs on them?
Oh, that's what the whole strategy is for. The reciprocal tariffs were to encourage them to play ball. They worked. And not only in one situation, but in 69 others. So you now have 70 countries that you can say are a positive example of the Trump tariff strategy working. And just a reminder, this is Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Union.
These tariffs come first and foremost at immense costs for U.S. consumers and businesses. But at the same time, they have a massive impact on the global economy. Especially hard hit are the developing countries. And this is a major turning point for the United States. Nonetheless, we stand ready to negotiate with the United States. Indeed, we have offered 0 for 0 tariffs for industrial goods, as we have successfully done with many other trading partners, because Europe is always ready for a good deal, so we keep it on the table.
Now, there you go. That's just one clip that stuck out in my mind, Nance. Go ahead.
Okay, we will agree to disagree on that.
Well, what's to disagree on? There aren't 70 countries that are saying they're dropping their tariffs?
They're only dropping their tariffs because Trump has levied obscenely large
Right.
tariffs.
Isn't that the whole thing we're doing here? Right? You're coming to rob me, and I lift up my shirt and I show you my 9mm, and then you back off. Didn't the gun work? How do you disagree on that? How do you say that having a gun didn't make me safer?
That's an interesting analogy, but I would put forth that things, the trade was not as imbalanced as Trump alleges.
I'm not alleging it either.
Okay.
Right? So if I'm wearing a Rolex and you think that my Rolex is worth $30,000, but I bought it from somebody who was in a jam and I paid $7,500 for it, whatever your perception of the value of my Rolex is when you come to rob me is really your problem, right? It doesn't really matter. Or vice versa. Let's say you think, that he got that secondhand from somebody who was in a jam who needed money and he helped them out. There's no way he dropped 30 grand on that, right? Whatever the perception is, doesn't really matter, right? What the trade imbalance is or what the value of my Rolex is. What matters is you're coming for it, and then I flash you my metal, and I show you that I've got some hot lead in my waistband that could easily enter your body if you keep taking steps towards me to take my stuff. And then you say, I don't want to get shot today. Let me retreat. Let's make a deal. Maybe I walk away. I mean, I don't see how that's arguable in any way.
Well, okay. So you allege that 70 countries have now negotiated.
I'm not alleging it. The Secretary of the Treasury is.
Okay.
And the one clip I just played for you is the President of the European Union. I don't know. There's something like 30, 40 nations that she represents. Maybe more.
I understand, but we interpret what she said differently.
Yeah, she said, I don't like Trump. Trump is a douche. He's doing bad things to America. That said, right, you could eliminate the first half of what she said. She said, we're looking for a deal and we're willing to go 0 for 0 tariff on industrial goods. That's really what we're negotiating for anyway.
Can we change topics and ask why? If all of this is working so swimmingly, why has every top economist in the United States come out against, and not only against, but shooting up flares about what a disaster this economy is going to be?
I interview a number of economists who I think are top economists. I mean, people that have served on the White House Council of Economic Advisors, people that have served in the Office of Management and Budget, people that have experience. These are not just people with a PhD in economics. These are people with a PhD in economics that have worked in government. Steve Moore, for example, Steve Moore was on this program a number of times talking about the tariff strategy and explaining exactly why he thinks it's working. While they may have their critique over, elements of it, at the end of the day, I think they all realize, and you could play the tapes. My tapes are available for everyone to hear and to listen to absolutely free at richvaldez.com. But we've had E.J. Antoni on this program a number of times, Steve Moore a number of times, and those are just two of probably the top economists in the country that have a firm understanding of this stuff, talking about how not only is it been effective, but that it's likely to continue to make things better in the long run.
Clearly, we're on polar opposites of.
Well, that's what we do here. So it depends now who's more convincing, who's armed with their facts better, who's better equipped at making the case that we will be in a better position financially 6 months from now or even today, right? And I think I'm winning this round here because you're arguing something against Trump that you don't like trade deficits or the way he was making the argument, and I'm arguing that the bottom line's already here, Nance. We've already arrived. We now have 70 nations that are saying, let's go 0 for 0 tariffs, free and fair trade. That's a win, no matter what side of the aisle you're on.
Why is he underwater in every single poll? Why are millions?
Well, he's not. I think you should listen to this show a little more often. We just had a pollster on the other day from Rasmussen. Rasmussen's one of the more accurate pollsters in the nation. And that was the question I asked. Why is it being reported that Trump is doing so poorly? And his name is Mark Mitchell. We did it, I think it was last Monday or the Monday before. Very, very good discussion we had. In fact, the most recent numbers show Trump actually skyrocketed after this tariff strategy actually hit the media. So I think a lot of what you're seeing is politics. And when you actually go to brass tacks and the actual numbers, he's doing way better than you think. If you eliminate your own feelings about his personality and whatever else you may not like about him or people like me, and you just look at the real results, I think you're going to be impressed, Nance. I'll be right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And not a whole lot of time to get to a lot of the calls, but we've had a few callers asking, why are we helping Ukraine? Very simply, the United States pressured Ukraine to give up its nuclear weapons and turned to them and said, if you give up your nukes, we will eternally provide you with security assurances from Russia, so that they will not invade you. And since that time, they've been invaded, right? They took Crimea. Now they took the Donbass region and whatever else they've taken. So we have this commitment. Now, I don't know if that deal expires, if it should expire. Should we be like, all right, we screwed you. We took your weapons and now Russia's going to rob you. Doesn't seem like the right thing to do. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's the Thursday night edition of our program, and I want to welcome you. Here's our phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And we're going to get to your calls in a little bit. There's a bunch of people on hold. I do want to speak with everybody. There's also a few things I want to talk about. One of the things is I saw this report online somewhere. It was really the opinion of a doctor saying that brain dead is something that was invented in order to harvest live organs. Fascinating concept. We'll hear more about that after the bottom of the hour. But what I want to get to here is a quick report, and then I'm going to get to your calls. A quick report on the wildfires that I think I was saying quite incredulously or quite skeptically. I didn't know we had wildfires in New Jersey. Honestly, I don't know that we have wildfires anywhere. I think that's kind of like saying brain dead, right? I think it's one of these things that was invented to justify things. Listen to this.
A teenager who didn't properly extinguish a bonfire has been charged with starting the massive wildfire that has burned about 15,000 acres in Ocean County, authorities say. Joseph W. Kling of Waretown has been charged with aggravated arson and arson, the Ocean County Prosecutor's Office said Thursday. Investigators said Kling set pallets on fire and left without fully extinguishing them. The fire started Tuesday morning and has burned about 15,000 acres. The Jones Road wildfire ranks among New Jersey's 20 biggest fires in the past century, according to preliminary statistics from the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection.
So this guy, 19 years old, I have a 19-year-old, by the way. My daughter, my youngest daughter, is 19. And this guy, 19 years old, his name is Joseph Kling. He appeared in court. He was charged with arson for allegedly sparking this fire that became what they call a wildfire. I guess by that definition, every fire is wild after you start it. A 19-year-old man charged with arson for doing this. It's already burned 15,000 acres. Joseph Kling of Ocean Township allegedly started the bonfire, and in the wilderness area, these wooden pallets exploded out of control when he didn't properly put it out, according to the prosecutor's office in Ocean County, New Jersey. He was taken into custody and brought to jail. There's a picture of him there. And some of the photos of him being arraigned and whatnot, really just, man, it's crazy to see all the damage that this guy's little bonfire, which wasn't that little. He lit 20 pallets, wooden pallets. He lit 20 wooden pallets on fire. So it was a pretty big bonfire. And I guess when they say he didn't extinguish it properly, I don't know what that means. Did he extinguish it at all? Did he leave embers? The wind came, restarted it? I don't know. But neither the prosecutor's office or Mr. Kling's public defender had any questions for the judge. So as we get more on this, I'll bring it to you. But this man, 19 years old, he's in custody for arson with respect to this fire that's now 50% contained in New Jersey. 15,000 acres thus far. Now, something else I wanted to talk about very quickly was a conversation I just had with somebody in the previous hour that was not in agreement about Trump's tariff strategy. And again, you don't have to agree with Trump's strategy, and you don't have to like Trump either. But you can't deny the facts. And when Honda says they're going to make 90% of their U.S. Of their vehicles, the U.S. sold vehicles here in the U.S., that's quite a commitment. 90% of these vehicles are going to be made in the United States. I love that. That's new. That wasn't the case before. When you've got Hyundai saying that they're opening a steel plant and they're going to do that in the United States, that's new. When you've got Apple saying they're moving some of their manufacturing operations to the United States. Great. Now, again, I don't care if they come by hook or by crook, right? I don't care what the incentive is. They're afraid of getting the crap tariffed out of them. That's what it's for. That's the whole point, is to make it punitive. If you don't do things here, you pay this. That is the strategy. Should it be the opposite? We'll pay you, give you a tax break, and you can make stuff overseas to continue to screw future generations of this country so nobody will have a job here and we can contribute to the economies of other countries, in particular those that hate our guts. Doesn't make sense to me. Anyway, let's go to Laura. She's in Stafford, Virginia on WMAL. Go right ahead.
Hi, Rich.
Hi, Laura.
It's actually Cora.
Oh, I'm sorry, Cora.
No worries, no worries. I just wanted to say I just started listening to you not too long ago.
Thank you for that.
Since you came on WMAL, I was hoping they would give you your 3-hour slot instead of 2 hours.
Speak it into existence.
Sorry, my dog. I just got home. My dog's barking. But anyways,
yeah.
I just want to let you know I really like the show. I like the variety, all the different people you have on there for the different views. The one lady you were speaking to, I noticed, assuming she didn't sound like she liked Trump, because she was trying to say like every person was saying that
all the economists, right? She said every economist.
Yes, and it was like always everyone, and I was like, just when you start hearing people saying those particular keywords, you know that they're
not keeping a very open mind. I think you're right, Cora, and I'm glad she's listening to the show, and I'm glad that she called and had the discussion. I'm hoping that she'll call again. I love talking to people that disagree. I love talking to people that agree too. I think it's just important to have a late night national conversation, and the beauty of it. And you mentioned WMAL, which is out of our nation's capital, great station. That's where you're calling from. We're on live in hundreds of markets across this country, and it's such an opportunity for me. Really, it's like one of the highlights of doing this show, being able to talk to people live at night when they're a little bit calmer, when their dogs are, jealous that we're not going on that late night walk because you're talking to Rich Valdez on the phone. But, when people they have the time to sit back and listen to a more evolved or a more in-depth analysis, where it's more than a 5, 6, 7 minute segment where you get to spend, 20, 30, 40 minutes on a topic and then get the reaction of the callers. So to me, it's a deep dive, and I always appreciate it from every angle. So thank you, Cora, for your call. Stafford, Virginia in the building. Shout out to WMAL. And hopefully we'll get that 3rd hour sooner rather than later. Thank you, Cora. Godspeed to you. And let me see. Do we get another one in there? Let me get one more before we hit our pause. Let's go to Paul, Boise, Idaho, KBOI. Paul, go right ahead, sir. All right, we tried Paul. No Paul tonight, so we're going to take a pause right here. I think he has us on mute. Or he put the phone down, took a nap, walked away. Who knows? But we'll get back to Paul in a little bit. Plus, we've got Rochester, New York in the building, Wilmington, Delaware in the building, more that are calling in. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. I had somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
right.
But
you're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez keeping you company here on the late shift for the next, 40 minutes or so. And I want to get into something with you here because I'm looking at a bunch of stories here. NBC News, latest Trump polling proves Gavin Newsom is on the wrong track. Fox News, young Americans sour on congressional Democrats, new poll finds. That's the Harvard Youth poll by the university's Institute of Politics. Then you've got young Americans are increasingly distrustful of government institutions, according to a new poll. You just keep going, and they keep going on and on about what is going on here. The Miami Herald Kamala Harris, not the best representative. And a new poll finds Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez as atop the list. I mean, you've got polls on everything with respect to the Democrats, and none of it really looks positive. So I want to make heads or tails of this from you all, the listeners, 833-482-5337. And, of course, one of the top pollsters in the country. This guy gets it right. I try to bring you guys that have very good track records on this program, solid pollsters, and not the least of which is the chief pollster from the Trafalgar Group, Robert Cahaly. Welcome, sir.
Awesome to be on your show again.
Thank you. Thank you. Always a pleasure. And I want you to listen to a clip from Harry Enton, the data analyst at CNN. I want to get your reaction to this. Listen to this.
Yeah, this, I think, is a revolt that is going on within the Democratic Party right now, Democrats and their leaders. I mean, take a look nationally. Hello, Democrats on Dem leaders in Congress. The belief that they will do the right thing when it comes to the economy. Last year at this time, 80% believed that the Democratic leaders in Congress would do the right thing when it comes to the economy. And keep in mind, this is Democrats. Look at where we are now. That number has been slashed in half to just 39%. Holy Toledo, that is the lowest number by far in Gallup polling. The lowest previous was just 60%, which is 21 points higher than this. Democrats hate what their congressional leaders in Washington are doing right now on the key issue of the day, the economy, and their confidence has fallen through the floor, Mr. Berman.
All right, that wasn't just hate. That was hate. That's 4 hates in a row, as the count pointed out, and that is accurate. So I want to get your reaction to this. Robert Cahaly, chief pollster and strategist at the Trafalgar Group. What is going on with Democrats?
Well, first of all, let me say, Harry Enton has a way of getting very, very excited. He is the ultimate polling
Holy Toledo
man.
Yeah, he's great.
He really does. He gets very much into it. But it is a trend. I mean, it is a trend. And I mean, frankly, from my perspective, it's a healthy one that we're returning, the same skepticism the founding fathers had of government. And the next generation is picking that up. Whereas, there's been, the previous generation before that was, thinking government could solve their problems. But there is this feeling, and even on the left, they see that they're not focused on everyday things. I mean, when you see people like Carville and Axelrod saying you're going the wrong direction and you're a Democrat, you shouldn't ignore them. I mean, these guys have made this guy, in this president, the father from Maryland. I mean, they have
Kilmar Abrego Garcia.
It is amazing to me. They find these 90-10 issues and get on the wrong side.
On the 10.
And it really is like I'm just waiting for them to come out against puppies and ice cream because I don't get it.
And I don't either. I was hoping that you would have the answer to that one.
It really is. It's they're harping on. I tell you who did a really good show on this. Michael Smerconish did a show on week before last, and they were talking about whether that Trump might in some places be wrong on the law but right on the politics, and I think that's it. There might be a legal case to be made, but you're going to lose in the court of public opinion. And in the end, politics is about public opinion. That's what matters. And that is what, I mean, despite all the media trying to just rile people up and get them obsessed with tariffs and everything else, this attention that's happening on these other issues is distracting and keeping Trump's numbers where they are and not as negative as you expected. And then you've got this guy Hogg on the Democrat committee, and he's talking about taking out Democrats in primaries. What he said, it's not just old ones, but it's the out of touch old ones. So I think there is this idea that the young people of the Democratic Party see many of their leaders as out of touch with what they want. I think is very realistic. And what's interesting on that is one of the first places, and we said this like 4 years ago, well before October 7th and all that, we did a poll, and I came out that the Democrats were less pro-Israel than the Republicans, and they were split. And everybody's like, "You're crazy. You're wrong. There's no way." And we commented, we're not talking about Nancy Pelosi. We're not talking about Biden. We're not talking about Schumer. We're talking about the average run-of-the-mill Democrat is way more sympathetic to the Palestinians. This was over a little dust up there when Israel bombed a couple buildings. But I saw this coming. And so part of that is that those young people are on the wrong side of, what Israel, which used to be just a uniting issue, bipartisan. They look at their old leaders and say, they're still back in Israel and we're not. And they look at a lot of other issues that they just don't see as being progressive enough. And then the younger Democrats with any sense don't seem being politically smart enough.
Robert Cahaly, chief pollster at the Trafalgar Group. You bring up a lot of good points. And with about a minute and a half to go before we take a pause, there was some discussion earlier on this program with one of our listeners that called in saying that Trump is underwater on all of his numbers as a result of the tariff strategy. And I saw some reporting, at least from Rasmussen, that indicated the exact opposite, saying that, Trump really shot out ahead of his favorability and improved after he implemented the reciprocal tariffs. So what sense do you make of that?
Well, with all due respect to Rasmussen, a lot of the times, some of those numbers are always tend to err on the side of being pro-Trump, and everybody's got their thing. But I think that the average person is worried tariffs are going to hurt them, but they haven't hurt them yet. And there's been a lot of talk on. In the business world about the fear of tariffs has been much greater than the actual tariffs. So there's a lot of people caught up thinking there's going to be bad things happen with the economy based on tariffs, businesses backing off what their predictions are. But I think the fear of tariffs is pushing against Trump. But there's so many other things that are positive that are keeping him above water.
All right, well, we'll continue to pull on that thread straight ahead. Folks, Robert Cahaly coming right back with me, Rich Valdez. Don't go anywhere.
The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Chuck Schumer's poll numbers are now slipping in his home state. Schumer's favorability rating now stands at 39% favorable and 49% unfavorable among New York State voters questioned in the Siena College poll. And that is the worst showing in 20 years. Meantime, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's numbers now soaring. The four-term Democrat from New York City and a progressive champion stands at 47% favorable and 33% unfavorable among New York State voters.
So that is a report from the national desk. And what I find interesting here is that AOC, all out crazy, my least favorite congresswoman from the Bronx and Queens, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she's actually leading the pack in another poll, the Qantas Insights poll, where people think she's the best candidate to run for president, and 19% of Democrats think that she should also, that she actually best reflects the core values of the Democrat Party. Let's get some analysis on this, and then we're going to your calls, by the way, 833-4-VALDEZ. Robert Cahaly, chief pollster and strategist at the Trafalgar Group. What do you think about all that?
Well, I think that it kind of demonstrates what I was talking about. The Democrat Party, the membership has changed. This is not the old Democrat Party that Schumer represents. This is a new Democrat Party that is much more in the Bernie Sanders, way of thinking. And what a genius move for Bernie to go around with AOC and
all out crazy,
put his, kind of put his stamp there, and almost like pass the torch to her, and say, this is who can carry this forward. And because Bernie had a lot of followers and a lot of, and so this to me makes a lot of sense. And it really is going to come down to, and I know there's not a lot of folks that you may hear this the first time you've heard this, but we're doing a little work looking at how people are, what they think of, some of what Trump has promised and whether it's going to pass. And so if whatever the form this bill takes, if they follow through with getting rid of the tax on tips, the tax on Social Security, and the tax on overtime, it's going to solve a few problems. One, any talk of economic decline is going to end, because as soon as it passes and people know their tips and their overtime and their Social Security aren't going to be taxed, they're going to start spending, and you're going to see an economic uptick like you can't believe. Also, that is going to be felt by every senior, and the Republicans will be rewarded in the midterms with seniors seeing the biggest follow through on something promised to them that they've seen in a political lifetime. And so, any effort to not pass that is political suicide for the Republicans. And getting that done, I don't care how many years AOC wants to talk about her being a waitress and everything else. Every waitress, every waiter, anybody who gets tips in America is going to go, I know what party got rid of my tips.
Yeah.
I know what party got rid of those taxes on my tips. So I think, and we've already collected a great deal of data of people who feel like that is a critical issue for them. And I think if somehow, two big, beautiful bills, whatever, if that doesn't happen, it is going to be a big problem for Republicans maintaining control of Congress and a big problem for the economy. And this thing is going to come down to economy, and she is the perfect kind of foil. Well, what they're doing now isn't right. Let me try. Biden didn't go far enough. That's the way she's going to play it. And so right now, where people are still dissatisfied with Trump is pocketbook. They haven't seen prices drop yet. And so this is something. I
think gas is cheaper, no?
Oh, yes. But I'm just saying, when everybody harped on groceries, they haven't seen the groceries drop. And gas hasn't dropped tremendously. It's dropped a little bit, but it always fluctuated a little bit. Now, granted, when it dropped when Biden was president, it's because they were raping the strategic reserve.
Yeah.
But the fact is, Trump, first of all, when you look at Trump approvals, you should focus on people, on polling companies who actually got the election right. So a lot of, Trump is doing a lot of things on immigration that takes even parts of his agenda that aren't so popular and are still making his approvals positive. And so, there's not a whole lot that are out there. I mean, obviously we did, Rasmussen did, Insider Advantage did, Atlas Intel did, but for the most part, all these other quote unquote establishment national, they all blew it.
Yeah, like Nate Silver, 538, and those guys.
Oh, yeah, all those guys. I mean, I don't even think 538's in business anymore. So it's just like, I mean, yeah, it took Kamala Harris to kill 538. The dumbest thing predicting that she was more likely to win than Trump. But no, I think the Democrats are dissatisfied. The younger Democrats are wanting to push out the old because they're dissatisfied with what's happening. And young people are up for grabs. A lot of young people are doing these jobs, getting tips. This is a chance for the GOP to do this, to grab that generation that's just darn frustrated and
Robert
wants something
Cahaly,
different.
Question for you. And this is my second attempt at this, because really I'm just as befuddled as you are. But do you have any polling or any even adjacent polling that would help me understand? And I understand the appeal to the base, but I really don't understand, if you know it's a losing issue and you just lost the White House because of immigration in large part, why are Democrats doubling down on this strategy of visiting El Salvador, visiting Mahmoud Khalil at his ICE detention center, if they know this doesn't poll well for them by and large? Is it because they're specifically going after the base and they don't care?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. We know a lot more. We knew a lot more about that guy before the senator's plane landed. I think if he could have turned around and gone home, he might have. And now they're hearing any more. And so it has become what they're doing is they're screaming on the side of the mountain, the procedure wasn't right. But they're selling theirs by this is a good guy. And the Republicans are saying, well, no, he was not a good guy. And any procedure that kept him here is a flawed procedure. And so you can't, those arguments don't work. One can't say the procedure wasn't right, wasn't followed. They're not arguing that. The Republicans say, well, the procedure's wrong because bad people need to go. And so it's like, I learned a long time ago, in a family, you can be the person who's always right, but you won't be very popular. Sometimes arguing on a point that you might have something that technically something done right and your point is correct, but all you do is make people angry because you're on the side of something that isn't popular. I think that's what they're doing. They're saying this box wasn't checked off, therefore Trump is, crazy, breaking all these rules. But they're doing it with a poster child that so overwhelms their argument as to make it almost irrelevant.
Robert Cahaly, chief pollster at Trafalgar Group. Let everybody know how they can learn more about the work that you're doing and how they can follow you.
You can follow us on X at robert.cahaly or Trafalgar_group and thetrafalgargroup.org on online, our website, and we're on True Social with the exact same monikers, and we're on Facebook and Instagram. So we put stuff out all the time. Little less after the election, but definitely keep up with our X and our True Socials, because that's usually where we put stuff out first.
Outstanding. Well, thank you for being here, brother. I appreciate it. Godspeed to you, and we're going to have you back really soon.
Well, thank you for hosting one of the most powerful shows out there, and it's always a pleasure to be on there.
Thank you, Robert Cahaly. Godspeed. And amigos, we're going to your calls right now. We've got Delaware, New York, Texas, Iowa, and a quick man on the street interview about what type of Maryland man, Maryland father is this, and what do his neighbors think about him? Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
He was living in Maryland, designated MS-13 terrorist, and Donald Trump deported him. How does that make you feel?
I feel safer.
He gotta go. He gotta go.
Need to go. I mean, that's it.
But he was a father.
But he's still a terrorist.
Okay. I mean, but There's children living without fathers now.
He should have picked and choose, so he picked to be a terrorist instead of worrying about his children.
The Democrats, they want him back. They say he was wrongfully deported. He has a wife and a kid who's a citizen. They're calling this a national emergency. Is this a national emergency?
I wouldn't call it a national emergency. We got more things going on. We have more things, more fish to fry.
I just found out about it, so I don't think so. What kind of national emergency? For what? What is the emergency for?
Ain't no national emergency, no.
He was accused of hitting his wife twice and was a suspected human smuggler. Was he wrongfully deported?
No. He need to go.
If he's a smuggler, yeah, he need to be deported.
It's better to be safe than sorry.
Those are Maryland residents speaking on whether or not this guy was wrongfully deported. Not a single one said, yeah, I love this guy. Let's send our senator there to advocate on his behalf. Anyway, I want to get some of your thoughts on this stuff. Let's go to John, Rochester, New York, WGDJ. John, go right ahead, sir.
Well, hello. Hi. Thank you for getting me on. And
thank you for calling.
Well, thank you. I think you're one of the great night hosts, and I think you're a good person to run this by. Right now, and for quite some time, the left, the communists, the Democrats, the Illuminati, the dark state, deep state, shadow state, shadow government, whatever you want to call it, they've been attacking liberty. They've been attacking your right to open your mouth and speak your piece. And right about now, they were attacking Tucker Carlson. I hope I can mention these names. They were attacking Tucker Carlson. They're going after Alex Jones with a vengeance. Why? Because these people, you guys, you tell the truth. And we certainly can't have that. And if you ever knew Democrats the way I know them, I'm going to be very critical. How do you know a Democrat is lying every time they open their mouth? Excuse me. But that's why Trump got elected. That's one of the biggest reasons, because he's a guy that does exactly what he says he's going to do. You might not agree with him. I agree with him on just about everything. You might not agree with him, but he's a straight shooter. He's not like Obama. Obama, well, real quick, I'll do this because this isn't really what I was getting into.
Sure, and please get to it because then we'll run out of time.
Obama said the jobs will never come back.
Yeah.
Well, Trump wasn't even in office, and he had 1,000 jobs waiting, if I remember right, at Carrier Corporation, and he wasn't even the president yet. To show you what a pack of filthy, dirty liars Democrats are. That's why Trump got elected. Now, they're going after the truthful media. And there's a lot of good truthful media out there. I think you're one of them. All right? You let people speak their mind. And that's the First Amendment. If you notice, the First Amendment is the very first amendment. And that's free speech, free religion, freedom to assemble, freedom to redress. And then the Second Amendment is the second one that protects the first, and that's your right to a gun. And they didn't say in the Constitution, oh, you only can have deer rifles. Well, anyway, now to get to the point, they're going after the truthful media. What do you suggest? Like, for example, there's Alex Jones, and they had a trial that was more a kangaroo court than anything else. They told him, well, if you say that you're innocent, we'll throw you in jail. You can't say this and you can't say that. You can't defend yourself. When we accuse you,
what's the bottom line here, John?
Well, what do you suggest? Why does anybody give the Democrats the dignity that anytime they pull these stunts and have fake trials and kangaroo courts and bought-off judges, we legitimize it?
Well, here's the thing. And I appreciate it, all of your kind words toward me. I can't speak for anybody else besides myself, but I can say this. When you are, as President Reagan called us, informed patriots, you're just that. You're informed. You're in the know. You know what's going on. You're curious about things. All too often, life makes us incurious people. right? So as in curious people, and I don't mean you, somebody that's up, at night listening to the radio about the news of the day and analysis on topics of society and culture. But there's a lot of people that are just tossing and turning right now because they have to get to work early in the morning and they're trying to make a living and provide for their families. And I don't begrudge them one bit. But I realize that they don't have the time or the ability or the interest in many ways, in many situations, to do what I'm doing, to sit here and look at all this and consume all the information. They want a small report somewhere, so they'll turn on CNN or MSNBC or their local morning news. And the reality is the lies that you were talking about, they're peddled in a lot of places. So you can get the masses to believe just about anything, like put on a mask, stand far away from people, right? Give me 15 days to flatten the curve. It ended up being a campaign for isolation, for mass vaccination that we learned has killed people. I mean, it's horrible what we've seen happen. So what I suggest, more truth. Daylight is the best disinfectant. Keep fighting the fight. Sometimes what I say is unpopular. Sometimes what I say is very popular. But I keep saying the same thing, and that's kind of how this job works. You get out there and you do your thing, and sometimes they're going to come after you and sometimes they won't. And you got to do your best to be as careful as you can be so that you never get caught with your pants down and that, you're able to do it again tomorrow. And Godspeed to everybody in this business and everybody that's out there. John in Rochester, I got to pause right here, but we'll be right back. WGDJ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, this is the speed round. That means you have to make a complicated point and use very, very few words to do it and make it quickly. Steve in Keokuk, Iowa, KOKX, quickly.
Hey, I had a question for you. I wanted to know your opinion. In Africa, they had, for public education, they teach education through FM radio. I was wondering to know what you thought about that being done in the United States to prevent woke crap and stuff like that.
I love the radio. I think it's fantastic. I think we have a different system here where we use classrooms, so it would require a little more study. I don't know that we would do that by and large, but homeschooling is an option that works similar, right, with remote curriculum, so that's a possibility. Trey in College Station, Texas, school choice is a double-edged sword. If you can call back tomorrow, let me know why. I'd love to know why. I think it's a win-win. And James in Wilmington, Delaware, WDEL, WTAW. Yeah, 24 hours. Yeah, not so fast. Not so fast. A lot more complicated than we thought. I'm Rich Valdez.